Welcome to the White House, everybody. My name's Kyle Learman. I work in the Office of Public Engagement here and run the Champions of Change program. So first off, I just want to give a big round of applause and thank you to all of our Champions of Change here today. So today's Champions of Change is our Champions of Change in Transportation Innovation. We have a whole slew of really incredible folks from around the country who are doing great work in that area. And to kick us off, I'm going to introduce the Secretary of Transportation, Ray LaHood.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am so delighted to be here and so delighted that the White House took our recommendations for Champions of Change. And we know so many of you folks that have done such innovative, creative work in your communities or in your industry, and that's really what we are honoring and celebrating here this morning. And let me say that without the work that you do, we wouldn't be able to accomplish many of the things that we have set out to do over the last 3.5, almost 4 years now. There are so many innovative, creative projects, programs, implementation of new creative ideas. A few years ago, I used to say, this is not your father or grandfather's Department of Transportation. And I've also told people one of the reasons I took this job was because I knew that this was going to be a transformational president, a transformational administration, and a transformational Department of Transportation. And frankly, that's what we're honoring here today. We're not talking about the past. We're not talking about building more roads and bridges. We're talking about building new and creative communities with innovative, creative ways of getting people around those communities, from people who've been involved in transportation, people who have been thinking outside of the box. It's a new day in America for transportation. 3.5 years ago, very few communities were talking about streetcars. Very few communities were talking about light rail. Almost nobody was talking about high-speed rail. And I know that we're honoring the airline industry and in particular one person that represents the industry, but think of the airline industry and the kind of changes that have taken place. Think of the communities that you live in, where we really are thinking about how people are going to live, how they're going to walk, how they're going to jog, how they're going to get around their communities. Whether it's by delivering themselves on a high-speed rail train to the community, or a light rail, or a streetcar, or at the airports. There are so many innovative things going on, and it would not have happened without a transformational president and a transformational Department of Transportation and people in communities and in businesses that have been thinking outside of the box. You are the innovators. You are the creators. You're the ones that have transformed America's transportation system. And we all feel very privileged at the Department of Transportation to have had the opportunity to help facilitate that with a little bit of money and a little bit of creativity, but we've learned so much from all of you. I know each one of these honorees today. I know them very well. We've worked with all of them. I could cite chapter and verse all the good things that all of them have done. I think that we'll save that for later, but I want to say congratulations to all of you that are being honored, that we're celebrating, the work that we're celebrating. America's been transformed, and you represent a part of that transformation. We represent a little bit of it here on our end. And I say congratulations to all of you for thinking outside of the box, for hanging in there, for willing to be creative, to willing to be patient, and so this is a day of celebration. and we're delighted that we could be a part of it, and say congratulations to all of you for each in your own way transforming transportation, livable and sustainable communities, and opportunities for all Americans to really have the next generation of transportation, the next generation of communities. And that's in part what we're celebrating. What every other generation has done is left something different for the next generation. That's what all of you have done, and that's what we've been a part of. It's going to be a great legacy, and I'm delighted to be here to say congratulations to all of you for making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So now we have 3 special guests, all of whom are leaders at the Department of Transportation, to introduce our champions. We have Ann Farrow, the Administrator of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, Joe Szabo, the Administrator of the Federal Railroad Administration, and Therese McMillan, the Deputy Administrator of the Federal Transit Administration.
Thank you, Kyle. So I have the honor of introducing our first champion of change, who unfortunately could not be with us. His name is Lowell Porter, former Chief of Police for the State of Washington Highway Patrol, who's being honored as a proven traffic safety leader in law enforcement at the state, local, and national levels. So for those who are here for safety, let's give a round of applause for Lowell. Lowell Porter. Thank you.
And our next champion of change is Jerry Ensler, representing the Riverworks Discovery Program, which has helped kids and families understand the intersection of commerce, culture, and conservation on America's great rivers and their watersheds.
I have the pleasure of introducing David Bennett, who is representing Proterra Incorporated, which has developed a range of electric drive bus models that includes a new lightweight composite structure with a zero-emission fuel cell hybrid powertrain. The Proterra electric bus is the first to pass Altoona bus testing in the country.
Maybe a year or 2 ago?
About a year ago.
Yeah, great place.
There you go. Great endorsement. It is a joy to introduce the next honoree, our champion, Ellen Voya. Ellen is CEO of Women in Trucking. She has devoted her career to providing a better working environment for women in the trucking industry, and has also been instrumental in developing strategies to recruit, retain, and promote women in skilled trades in transportation careers. Ellen, congratulations.
This is a great organization. We have been trying to get women involved in transportation. This organization has gone above and beyond. This is what I'm talking about in terms of thinking outside the box. And Ellen has been very involved also in our efforts with trafficking of teens and women, and been very, very helpful in really putting together a great program. So congratulations. I know I'm not supposed to be doing this.
Sir, we learned a long time ago to follow your lead. Our next champion of change, Dr. Beverly Scott, has been a relentless advocate for the transit riding public of the greater Atlanta metropolitan area and across the country. In her current role at MARTA, Dr. Scott has engaged diverse stakeholders from both the inner city and suburban neighborhoods to strengthen the comprehensive regional transportation plan, including public transportation. Dr. Scott, congratulations.
Chicago way, we'd ship you all down to Atlanta on JetBlue and get Delta all revved up. But we're not going to do that, because we're going to do it the right way. It's going to pass. It better pass.
Well, from Atlanta, we will travel to the west. Susan Martinovich has worked diligently to pursue effective local and state-level safety policies that are providing a way forward for others across the country. As the Director of Transportation in Nevada, Susan established the Zero Fatalities public outreach campaign, resulting in the lowest ever traffic fatality rates in the state's history.
It's an honor to introduce our next champion, Dave Barger. Dave is the CEO and president and director of JetBlue. He's been a key leader in the joint FAA industry effort to implement NextGen, a comprehensive overhaul of the national aerospace system. NextGen will make air travel more convenient and dependable while ensuring flights are safe, secure, and convenient. Michael, did I do okay? Now, most importantly, Dave is recognized as an all-around really nice guy. So hats off to Dave.
Our next champion, and this one's a personal pleasure for me, Dan Richard, who's led the California High-Speed Rail Authority in developing a comprehensive and successful high-speed rail plan that will better reflect the needs and change the traveling habits of Californians. This plan and California's leadership will serve as a model for the rest of the nation. Dan, congratulations.
For a minute. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody, and I know these White House people, they love to keep everything moving on time. But I actually showed up a little early, so I'm going to take a little extra time. Any Californians here? Look, you're as usual, because of Dan's efforts, because of Governor Brown, because of the Assembly and the Senate, you're going to be way ahead of everybody else in the country. You're really going to have high-speed trains. They're going to go 200 miles an hour. This is what I meant by transformational. In California, they can't build any more roads. The roads can't take any more cars. So what people like Dan and the governor and the legislature are doing is really providing the next generation of transportation. And we're doing it all over America, but they're really doing it in California. And this is going to be an example where great leadership from Dan stepping in. This guy could be out clipping coupons somewhere, but because of Governor Brown, who all of you know is a little bit different than any other governor, he persuaded Dan to come back. And we're grateful to Dan for his leadership. We would not be where we're at. The legislature has voted to now sell $6 billion worth of bonds. We're going to contribute over $3 billion. This is the president's real vision here, and we've had great partners. And this is the next generation of transportation for the next generation, and California is setting the pace on this. So thank you guys for letting me.
Now it is my great pleasure to introduce Philip Washington, who has spearheaded the Workforce Initiative Now, or WIN program, which brings together various public and private sector partners to develop and implement the Career Pathways model. This program guides job-seeking applicants through the education, apprenticeship, and job placement sequence that can lead to long-term successful employment in the transportation industry.
It's a super treat to introduce not just a nationwide champion of change, but a local hero, Veronica Davis, who is the president and CEO of Inspire Green, her own company. She has been innovative in establishing a biking group for African-American women in the District of Columbia and has advocated for bicycle and pedestrian-friendly environments. In addition, Veronica has been instrumental in hosting a transportation summit in the Anacostia neighborhood here in D.C., and the impact of that just spread so much further. Veronica, congratulations.
And our next champion, Jock Whitsitt, is representing Roaring Fork Transportation Authority, which is a leader in the development of Veloci RFTA, the first rural transportation rapid transit system in the United States that'll run entirely on compressed natural gas and connect 5 rural towns and cities in the state of Colorado. Congratulations.
Now, for all of us that tend to forget our legs is a form of transportation, I am proud to now announce Bob Sloan, who has been instrumental in the development of Boston walking maps that have facilitated greater walkability, increased level of physical activity, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions and car trips, and most importantly, more vibrant communities.
Now, when it comes to public engagement, when it comes to truck and bus safety, the idea of ensuring the community is involved in the discussion is absolutely essential. So it is just a pleasure to recognize and introduce our next champion, Rebecca Townsend. Rebecca is professor, hang on just a sec, enthusiastic audience, professor at Manchester Community College up in New Hampshire, fully engaged, designed and developed and implemented a transportation planning model of public engagement. This model involves teaching community college students how to conduct face-to-face deliberative discussions with local stakeholders about transportation issues in their own communities, something we need desperately, so thank you for that.
And our final champion. Jason Roberts has made tireless efforts as he advocates for communities to be more bicycle and pedestrian friendly. Jason has been a leader in the Oak Cliff neighborhood of Texas to create a vision for streetcars and livable communities. Congratulations.
All right, so let's give a big round of applause for all of our champions of change in transportation innovation. All right, thank you, everybody. All right, so I just want to remind folks that this event here is happening here in the South Court Auditorium, but it's also live stream at whitehouse.gov/live. So if you have any friends at home that weren't able to make it today, make sure you tell them about that. And also, this conversation is happening on Twitter as well. We're using hashtag WHChamps. I know John Carson is the Director of Public Engagement. We'll talk about that when he comes in. He's at John Carson 44, and he loves Twitter. But for now, I just want to start our first panel by introducing Michael Huerta, who is the Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. Michael, take it away.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the 7 panelists joining me on the stage today are champions of change on the national level. So for us, hearing from you is the best part of our program today, so let's begin. I'd like to ask each of you, you heard from the Secretary that we're very diligent about time, but if you could just take a brief minute and, in your own words, talk a little bit about, provide a brief introduction for everyone's benefit of yourself. Dan, let's start with you.
I'm Dan Richard. I'm the chair of the California High-Speed Rail Authority, the agency in charge of implementing high-speed rail in California. I have background in government and business. I had worked for Governor Brown the first time when he was the youngest governor in California. Now he's the oldest governor in California's history. And it's been an honor and a privilege to work with our funding partners at the Department of Transportation to implement the President's vision and the people of California's vision for high-speed rail.
Dave.
Sure, and good morning, Mr. Administrator, Michael. We spend quite a bit of time together in the airline business. Dave Barger, I'm CEO, one of the founders of JetBlue Airways, and have been here at our company for 15 years. We're trying to build a little bit of a contrarian model in aviation, and which dates back to 1914, if you're interested. And along those lines, that's commercial aviation, that is. And I've been honored to be part of the Future of Aviation Advisory Committee and also chairing over the last 2 years the Next Gen Advisory Committee, which is really about the next generation air traffic control system, modernization of the system. And Michael, with you and your team's leadership in the airline industry and aerospace industry, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think we're moving the ball forward nicely. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
Good morning. I'm Susan Martinovich. I'm the director of the Nevada Department of Transportation. I'm also the past president of AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. And I have had the privilege of representing many states in our efforts to be innovative in the way that we deliver projects. Projects are worth nothing if they are not on the ground and being used by the users that can benefit from them, moving the economy, moving the goods, moving people. So we have been, as state agencies and organizations, working together to be innovative, to move and do what we do, and then also keep our publics and our users safe. Thank you.
Bev Scott, I'm General Manager and Chief Executive Officer of MARTA in Atlanta. I've been in this industry now for roughly, 35 years. I'm a past president of the American Public Transportation Association.
She started when she was 5.
I was 5, that's it. I currently serve as Vice Chair of the Department of Homeland Security National Infrastructure Advisory Commission. I will just tell you, I'm a startup fix-up change transition manager. My typical lifespan in organizations is about 5 years. That's why everybody laughs. They say, Bev, you can't keep a job. I said, no, I tell you one thing, my forte is being able to help organizations and communities be able to take it to the next level. And understanding the fact that I am one that's about if things are worth having, they're worth fighting for. Emphasis to this industry is tremendous, but it is not us. It really is about people, and it really is about communities, and a little bit of constructive agitation along the way never hurt anything. That's it.
Okay, Ellen?
My name's Ellen Voya, and I'm the president and CEO and founder of the Women in Trucking Association. We are a 5-year-old organization with members in the U.S. and Canada, and now Australia and some other countries. But our mission is threefold: to encourage women to look at careers in the trucking industry, and not just as drivers, but at all levels, and to help address some of the obstacles that women face, either from before entering the industry or while they're in the industry, and then thirdly, to celebrate success. And I think I'm just honored to be one of the champions here, and that my board of directors came in. But in our 5 years, we've made some real progress with the help of the Department of Transportation and Secretary LaHood's office, and Ann and Bryna and everybody. And so I think we have a lot more to do, but this is just we're in the middle. So.
Great. Dave?
Thanks. David Bennett, CEO of Proterra. Very honored to be representing all the employees at Proterra here today. Proterra wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some initial research and development money from the FTA. So we kind of started from the government side and have, from that, built a really dynamic private partnership and investment. Exciting business. You're looking at 600% improvement in fuel economy and public transportation. Very focused on the urbanization trend within the U.S. We don't ignore the rural side of it, but we're very focused on what's happening both in the U.S. and around the world about urbanization and how public transit will fit into that. I've spent about 30 years in cars, buses, trucks, and planes. So this is very exciting. It's the reason I joined the company here. I saw just a dynamic nature to transform the industry from what's seen as a pretty old diesel bus environment to what it can be, which is zero emission and low cost and environmentally effective transportation. Thanks.
That's great. Jerry?
I'm Jerry Ensler. I'm the president of the National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium in the National River Center. It's a large facility, education learning center in a small town, Dubuque, Iowa, but we're on a big river, the Mississippi River. Our RiverWorks Discovery program, which I'm representing, is a major program all across the rivers of America. And so we have offices in Cincinnati, we have co-sponsors all across the country. And the big message is that America's rivers carry an enormous amount of cargo and result in a tremendous boost to our nation's economy And it's far, far greater than that golden age of steamboats. We are in the tremendous golden age of transportation on rivers, and it will continue and grow.
Well, thanks. Bev, let's start with you. In reflecting on your commitment to innovation in transportation, way back when you were 5 years old, what was it that inspired you to take on that leadership role, both locally and at the national level?
Oh, my goodness. I'm so deeply honored. My mom is here. My mom is here today, and my son. But my mom, I had great parents. Grew up kid in, I guess what people would have called the slums or whatever. I didn't think of it as Cleveland, Ohio, back in the days of the riots and the whole 9 yards. And it was always about American dream, do the best you can, try to be a good student, try to be a good person. And you owe it to wind up trying to give something back when you've been given so much. And so I just had great parents. My dad's been passed for years, extended family that was absolutely unbelievable. And I just have a tremendous belief in people and in community, and that if working together, we can make beautiful music. So I've just been absolutely tremendously blessed.
That's a wonderful story.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Dan, same question. You know, you have worked for Governor Brown when he was the youngest and now the oldest governor, and it seems like you can't stay out of this whole government thing in California, but you've had a pretty impressive career in and out of industry as well.
Well, thank you. And first of all, my mother is here also, Annette Richard, and my son, Ben, and my wife. I've been fortunate to have opportunities in business and the public sector, and the interesting thing about being in the private sector is that there are a lot of things that you can do in organizations, but there's something about the public sector, and as the Secretary said, trying to leave something for the next generation that I think is vital. And it's unfortunate to me that we're not drawing more people into public sector work, because I think it's very important. So having gotten to the point where I retired from private sector career, when the governor called, I had the opportunity to go back, and as I had said to my wife, you know, I'd like a chance to work on something big, and I think I was given that chance. But the other thing too is living in a state like California, where you see, I mean, some of the nation's iconic structures, the Golden Gate Bridge, the water system, the university system. These were all built by people who had faith in the future, confidence in the future. I mean, to start the Golden Gate Bridge in the middle of the Depression, when people say to me now, well, is this the right time to be making a major investment in high-speed rail? Well, compared to what? Compared to what those folks saw. So I think, you know, it's a privilege to have the chance to work on something that is going to last for many, many years. And if we get this built, and I believe we will, and it's a privilege to work on something where, you know, we've got a governor who's got courage and vision. We've got a president who made this part of his vision for the country. And, you know, the chance to try to help bring that about gets me up in the morning.
That's great. Finally, Ellen, what inspired you?
Well, actually, I've been in the transportation industry since 1979, before deregulation, and I was 2. When I earned my diploma in traffic and transportation management. So my entire career has been in the trucking industry. And a few years back, I worked for a major carrier, a trucking company, and my job was manager of recruiting and retention programs. And they said, Ellen, we want you to figure out how to attract and retain some of these groups. And it was returning military, seniors, Hispanics, and women. And I realized that we weren't really doing a good job telling women about the great jobs in the trucking industry, and we weren't really doing a good job of reaching out and accommodating them. And so I actually was still working for them when I started Women in Trucking, and I kind of used the Women in Aviation model because I'm also a pilot, which Dan is a pilot. You've got a few pilots up here, by the way.
Yeah.
So using their model, we made Women in Trucking into a nonprofit association. And so I think by being a nonprofit, we are a little bit more approachable, and we can, people will jump in and become members because they catch our vision and they want to be part of it. So
That's great. Changing gears a little bit, accomplishments like we're talking about this morning really involve thinking outside the box. And I'm going to call on David to talk about, the bus industry. You mentioned kind of diesels, lots of smoke. What was it? What is it that prompted the innovation there, and what can you learn from that? What can you share with everybody else?
Sure. I think there's a spark of an idea. People have talked about it. You think about the future, not where you are, maybe not the past. And in our case, there was several people that had a visionary view of what you could do with transportation. Dale Hill, the founders here today, Doran Barnes from Foothill Transit bought the first battery electric vehicles and has them operational in Foothill. So they took a step forward and took a risk. And I think part of what's exciting about innovation is finding people that are willing to take a risk. They're willing to put their heart and their soul into it. They're really willing to gamble on sometimes inexperienced people, but also attract experienced people into the organization. We've been fortunate to put together a really dynamic team of people. They've got a passion around transportation with innovative technology. And you need that energy going forward to change an industry. And we really think we can, with the assistance we had initially from DOT, FTA, change the industry. And that's part of the reason I'm here, to have that transformation happen. So,
great. Thanks. Jerry, what are the lessons learned that you would share with other innovators?
I think the biggest lesson learned for us is the power of collaboration. RiverWorks Discovery, the vision originated with Mark Kanoy, who was president and chairman of the RiverWorks, American Electric Power RiverWorks operation. And he worked with museums and educators and others and a vision to really change the way that people all across America look at our river transportation. And it's so vital to our nation's economy. And, so he, with his vision and with continuing support from Keith Darling from AEP, we are now engaging museums and environmental organizations, transportation organizations all across the country. 400,000 people have now heard our message in the past 6 years. And we're developing a major traveling exhibit which will reach perhaps another 1 million people in the next 3 years. Letting people know that the carrying capacity of a barge is so much superior, it's slower than trains and cars and trucks, but it's has such tremendous capacity, and it uses so much less fuel that it's really a vital component of our nation's transportation mix. So I think what we learned is that the energy of the nonprofit sector paired with the profit sector, telling a story that really needed to be told, and now it's definitely having its impact on America.
That's great. Did you find that there was this initial rivers, what kind of reaction?
Yeah, we did. And as a matter of fact, some people have called it the hidden industry. Yeah. A lot of people know rivers and waterborne transportation from driving over a river on a bridge. Many of us today that's our significant...
It's a barrier to get across.
Yeah, it's a barrier to get across. That's our significant exposure to rivers. But when you look down and you realize the amount of jobs that are created by the commerce that goes on in the rivers, so we have a program called Who Works the Rivers? And it's a career awareness program, letting young people know that they also could have a career in river transportation. The surprise, I think, it's fun to see the surprise and the awakening when our visitors, our families, whether it's in a school program or Who Works the River, when they realize the impact of rivers on America. Many people know the golden age of steamboats and the great story of the voyageurs. They carried 7,000 pounds of cargo in one canoe. But they don't know the enormous story of river transportation today and how it interrelates to our intermodal system.
Yeah, that's great. When we talk about transportation, we talk about industries in motion, and it's about getting around and making sure that we have accessible transportation for everyone. And there is no industry that represents an industry in motion, I'll say selfishly, like aviation, and what the aviation industry is going through right now. I'd like to call on Dave and ask the question, what would you like to see as the next step in moving first aviation forward and then more broadly the transportation industry forward?
Thank you, Michael. I think, yes, we're definitely in motion. That's to say the least as an aviation industry. I think for us, it really is the movement on the next generation air traffic control system. By the way, this isn't just, the technology is there today. It's the use of satellites to move aircraft as opposed to ground-based radar systems. And so there's some nice traction that's taking place. The science, we're already using the science, right? Yeah. We're using it today on our PDAs, on our cell phones. We're using it to navigate our cars. And so the science exists today. It's the investment that takes place. It's the private-public partnership between the industry, aerospace, airlines, and the government as well. It's human factors, it's training that goes with that, it's procedures, right? So it's not just the technology, it's the 360 degrees to really drive efficiency. And I think that along those lines, that really, when you think about it, the United States has always been the leader in aerospace and in aviation. And this will continue to keep us there from the standpoint of driving our economy, certainly being very friendly from the environmental perspective and the use of energy. I think longer term in terms of the industry for all of us, and I come right back to the Future Aviation Advisory panel or committee, Michael, and that is certainly education. And I mean, really all of us helping to drive investment when we think about students coming through the talent into the pipeline for all of us. And this is science, technology, engineering, math. We talk about it as STEM, that acronym, but we need that. I represent 14,000 strong at our company. Certainly, it's great to see some of our members of our team here as well. Bill Allen, Bill Craner, thank you, Joe DeVito, Joe Bertopelli, Rob Land. This is a small group, and Nick Callio here with the industry. There's hundreds of thousands of people in our industry relying on talent. So I think moving transportation forward, Michael, it's the educational system in our country.
Absolutely. And I will say that Dave has invested a tremendous amount of time in working with us in ensuring that we have the partnerships to deploy the next generation air transportation system. There was a joke floating around early on in the process that Dave was spending so much time on this, we were wondering who was running JetBlue. But, but we've got there's a great team at JetBlue as well, and so we're in good hands. Susan, same question, an industry in motion, and you've been around it and you've seen it from a whole lot of different angles, but what would you like to see as the next step moving forward?
Thank you. I believe that transportation is the economic backbone of this country, and that transportation isn't just roads and bridges that's in my world, it's all of us working together and that connectivity. If a barge or if the Mississippi goes down, it affects Nevada. With those big rivers in our state, but it's just it needs to be connected, and I think that breaking down, continuing the communication and the work of the different modes together to appreciate how we can work together is going to take us really far. In the work that we've been doing, we have multi-state coalition of Western states, and we're talking about how do we bring in goods and people, how do we move goods and people through the air, through the rail system, through the highway system, and coming together, and so that we don't compete against each other for funding. Nevada should not be competing against California, but we should be working together in making that connectivity to continue the transportation system forward, because without it, I believe this country will fail in our competition with the world, and so we've got to keep talking and working together. Thank you.
We've heard a lot of themes about collaboration, connectivity, and working together, and I think that really is just a wonderful characterization of everything that we're trying to accomplish in transportation. So thank you all for that. And won't you join me in congratulating once again this panel?
Thank you. Thank you.
The Administrator of the Federal Highway Administration, is going to moderate this next panel. So Victor, I turn it over to you. Thanks.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. It's a real pleasure, a real honor for me to be here with a lot of our champions here. As you can tell, the first panel did really great, and if you look at the panel here, you read their bios, they have incredible experience, diversity of experience. It really is going to help our nation move forward. I do want to say that I do want to thank all of you and for being engaged in transportation and looking at all aspects of transportation to move us forward. I do want to say that I do want to join Secretary Ray LaHood and President Obama in congratulating all of you as the champions in transportation. Our panel here today is looking at the issue of innovation at the local level, at the community level. All of you have brought some really great ideas to help move transportation forward at the local level, and so it's important for us to also take a look at that perspective. So before we do start, I do want to go around the table and ask you to do a short introduction so that we can kind of reconnect with you. So I'll start over here with Phil.
I'm Phil Washington, the General Manager and CEO of the Regional Transportation District in Denver, Colorado. I'm here representing our Board of Directors and our contingent that are here. Our board chair is here, along with one of the board directors and 3 members of staff. But I'm also representing the drivers, mechanics, service, and cleaning folks in our organization. They are the frontline folks that make us go. Happy to be here, member of the APTA Executive Committee, also a member of the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, COMTO, which had a very successful conference, national conference in Denver, Colorado. Happy to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Veronica Davis. I just want to make one little correction to my introduction earlier. I'm actually the co-owner of Inspire Green, and my wonderful business partner, Chansai Lundia, is here. And together we are successful in transforming every community on the planet as the vision of our company. I'm also represent the District of Columbia on the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, the Transportation Planning Board, Citizens Advisory Council. That was a mouthful. But it is an honor to represent the nation's capital on thinking about transportation issues regionally. And I'm really excited also to be the co-founder of Black Women Bike DC. So I literally live, eat, and breathe transportation all day long, and I just love it. And I'm excited to be here, and I'm honored.
My name's Jackie Whitsitt, and I serve on the board of the Roaring Fork Transit Authority in the Roaring Fork Valley in Colorado. I'm also here on behalf of the whole board and really the citizens of the Roaring Fork Valley who made our accomplishment happen. It was support of the voters and support of the citizens that allowed us to be able to gain a successful vote in 2008 and is what really got us here today. I'm also a huge, passionate supporter of trails and lots of nonprofits that I won't go into, but basically I'm here on behalf of all the people of the Roaring Fork Valley. They're great.
I'm Bob Sloan. I'm with the group called Walk Boston in Boston. We founded the group, 4 other people and myself, about in 1990. And since then, we've been doing what basically is a lost cause, trying to get people to walk. But I've had a long history in lost causes. I worked in Boston years ago. We worked on the Inner Belt, which was a highway that was destined to really ruin Boston. Sorry. But it got chopped, and because of the study, it didn't get built, but the money was transferred to transit. We had 2 transit lines that were built because of it. And out of that study that we did came the Central Artery Study, which became later known as the Big Dig. So I was involved in the early phases of the Big Dig as well. Now I'm working with walkers, trying to get people to walk. Everybody walks. We all know we walk. Every trip involves a walk, even if it's only to your car. So we're trying to get more people to walk, and we're trying to make the places where they walk safer.
I'm Rebecca Townsend, Associate Professor of Communication at Manchester Community College in Manchester, Connecticut. I am also a principal investigator of the Partnership for Inclusive and Cost-Effective Public Participation. It's a program that's sponsored by the Federal Transit Administration, and it's a research program that involves community college students. I have to thank the White House for this honor. I am thrilled to represent Manchester Community College, the National Communication Association, and several of the community groups and students that have worked on this project. Happy to amplify their voices and concerns. I'm also thrilled to bring my family here today, and thank you, boys.
Wow, I'm shocked and amazed to be here with this amazing panel, and this has just been an incredible honor. My name is Jason Roberts. I live in the greatest community in the nation called Oak Cliff, Texas. I started a group called the Oak Cliff Transit Authority to help revitalize the streetcar with Luis Salcedo and Sylvia Camarillo that are here. And also developed a project, helped create a bike-friendly Oak Cliff to bring bicycling back to our community. And lastly, a project called the Better Block Project, where we took blighted blocks throughout our communities and tried to create these amazing blocks again, where you have those blighted buildings that we all see around us and say, how do I create those the neighborhood butcher and the neighborhood baker and the neighborhood cafe and the tavern? So we would do that over weekends with the community. And it's now become this national movement that surprised me completely. But my partner in crime in that, Andrew Howard, is here, and my mom and dad are here. Just very grateful and excited. Thank you.
Great. Let's give him take that. Well, Jason, I agree with you. It is an amazing panel, and all of the champions are amazing. If you look at everything we've heard today, just amazing things that are happening. I really like what I've heard. At least for this panel, a lot of you are engaged at the local level on activities that make us actually want to walk, bike, and do all that. I like to run myself. I live in D.C., so it's really great to hear what you bring to the table. Let me start with you, Jason. With respect to the work you've been doing, what was happening in your community that motivated you to do what you're doing?
Sure. Well, I started seeing, again, all these little commercial cluster of buildings nestled throughout our neighborhoods, and a lot of them were boarded up or vacant. And so I started looking at those and wondering, why did these exist and why aren't they online anymore? And as I studied that, I realized that our community, as many around the nation, was built around a streetcar line. So most of the community was able to facilitate a lot of their needs by just going from one little stop to the next stop. And we had the little neighborhood tavern, the neighborhood flower shop, and these were the social fabric of our communities. This is where the gathering places where the community came together and got to see each other. They created the eyes on the street. So once those went away and we changed our zoning ordinances in the 50s and 60s and we took the streetcars away, we pushed a lot of that further outside of our neighborhoods. People didn't see each other as much. You had to get in your car just to get a gallon of milk. Really what spurred me to look at doing something was going back to that model that we had in the past and talking really to a lot of the seniors in our community and them kind of opining over how wonderful things used to be, how they could walk out their door and see their neighbors and do a lot of these things. So really what got me spurred into action, into looking at revitalizing the streetcar and fixing these blocks and getting people to bicycle was looking at these vacant spaces in these buildings. I had buildings that had 600 seats in them, theaters with 35 parking spaces. So they were never going to work again unless we brought the streetcar back. So we're amazed to see the streetcar coming back. We're already seeing all this revitalization happen because of that initiative alone, but that's really what spurred it, was just looking at the bones of what we had in the past, and I think that's really the model that the nation could run with throughout the country.
Very good.
Thank you.
I think what you described is what Secretary LaHood mentioned, transformation. We're looking at transforming our communities. So going from Texas to Colorado, Jackie, what spurred you into what you're doing in innovation?
Well, what was happening in the Roaring Fork Valley of Colorado, which is a 40-mile stretch of highway from Aspen, Colorado to Glenwood Springs, is that there were thousands of people, tourists, workers, that were dumping onto a single road. And a lot of the resorts have a similar problem where you're in a mountain valley, there's no grid system at all. Everybody dumps down from the hillsides and onto one street. And it was, RAFTA has been around for a long time and was handling the situation pretty well, but we had gone through, the valley as a whole had gone through an attempt to get a train funded, and it was way too expensive for a rural community to undertake. And so we started looking at BRT, and after, I would say, 10 years, we finally got to the place we were on the ballot. But we really needed to do something about ramping up our capacity and our ability to move these people back and forth. So it was huge numbers of years and hours spent by our staff and our boards. Multiple boards, of course, went through this process, but really it was the intensity of the population growth and workers that drove us to have to be creative, and we were.
Very good. And I think you hit a key point. A lot of these ideas and innovations that all of us think about, they take time. Like you said, several boards have to work on it. It takes time, commitment, and people like yourself that are right there to move things forward. So thank you for doing that. In implementing innovation, there have been a lot of tangible successes that I think all of you bring to the table. And so, Rebecca, I would ask you, what are the tangible successes from your work?
Sure. There's a lot of tangible successes, but they may be a little bit untraditional or non-traditional. To explain what they are, I just want to give a quick background of what the project is. I'm at Manchester Community College, and we have about 7,500 credit students, dedicated faculty and staff. The students have a wide variety of backgrounds. Quarter of them are first generation in their family to go to school. A third are members of minority groups. 85% of them stay in Connecticut after they graduate. So these are strongly rooted in communities. They're all commuters as well. So the project that we did was to try to understand how to involve members of underrepresented groups, what planners called hard to reach. I call them underheard. Hard to reach, underheard populations in transit planning and transportation planning generally. And so the premise of the work, the research project, is that people trust who they know. And if you share a background and share a culture and share a community organization with somebody else, you're going to talk with that person. So I could ask a community group to talk with me, and they're going to say no. But if somebody who's a member of that community group asks, hey, you know what, after church, you mind sticking around and we'll have a little discussion? They're going to stick around. And so the tangible successes was the project worked. We had 87% of people who had never before participated in transportation planning participate. Members of the community college student body, the ones who are in my public speaking classes and my group communication classes, they didn't know that they were signing up for community service learning and talking about transportation. And so they were surprised, but they learned how to do it. And they were surprised at how well they could do it. They didn't realize that they could be leaders. So a woman like Berlin Pineda, who's a young woman who is a member of the New Dimension Christian Center in Hartford, talked to her pastor and said, could you get a group of people together? They did. A group of my students went there. Berlin led a discussion in Spanish. She translated all the materials. She transcribed all the discussion, an hour-long discussion. She worked hard. That's a huge success. She is an effective leader. Another student, Jonathan Colon, was involved in the project, and he heard the concerns of people in a group called Brother to Brother, a mentoring program on our campus. And one of the concerns was somebody who was in a wheelchair and was upset that there's no bus shelter to protect people from the rain and the snow. And so if you're in a wheelchair, you have to wheel out really fast or get stuck in the rain. And so he was able to do this project, get the transportation needs of this community heard by the planners at a symposium. And then he later ran for student government president. And a bus shelter is one of his platform items. So he's advocating for change. We heard concerns, we were able to get them accomplished, and people felt heard, and that's a major accomplishment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that kind kind of reminds me of the issue that everybody does have a voice.
Yes.
And we need to find a venue or a channel to listen to that voice.
So many
I like
people
what you're
feel
doing.
as though they're not worth listening to, and that's a
Yeah, it's not good.
project that's
Yeah.
changed. So,
Very good, very good.
Thank you.
Well, Bob, same question for you. In terms of tangible results of the work that you've been doing.
Well, we've been working a long time now to try to get people to walk more. And one of our projects was to produce maps so that people could walk around the town, walk around the cities. In our case, in Massachusetts, we don't have counties. We have 351 cities and towns. So every one of those is a challenge. And we try to work in as many as possible. We're not just limited to Boston. We're really Walk Massachusetts, but we don't have that name. So we've been doing maps all over the place. We've done about 65. Now, midway in doing these maps, we discovered that a lot of people were put off, probably by either being boring, too much history, too many beautiful views, nothing like that. But what it turned out to be, we thought, was that people were interested in time. It turned very many people off to have to walk. They thought it was inconvenient, it would take too long, that sort of thing. But we discovered the 5-minute quarter-mile walk. And in doing that, we can now say on our maps, this walk is 5 minutes from here to here, as opposed to a quarter mile. Quarter mile sounds like, I can't do that. But 5 minutes, you know you can do it. So we produce maps now in 5-minute increments, and they've been an enormous success. And we're doing them all over the region. I think we've done now 12 maps of cities like Salem and Malden and Everett and Chelsea, in addition to the Dorchester section of Boston and downtown Boston and the convention center in Boston. So we're doing it all over, and they've been a big success. So we're very pleased with that particular element.
Excellent. Well, thank you. It kind of reminds me, I like to run, and sometimes it's how you feel, whether you're going to run a quarter mile or 5 miles, or you run in minutes. So I understand. Very, very good perspective. To our other panelist, Veronica, I understand you work in the D.C. area, and I live in D.C. So let me ask you about this. Looking forward, how do you think your legacy will influence the future of your communities and others?
First, before looking forward, I really have to look back. I'm very honored that my family's here, particularly my grandmother and my mother, and I really stand on the shoulders of their sacrifice in order for me to even be here today. So I just want to make sure I acknowledge them as we talk about legacy. Black Women Bike, we were founded, it was actually an accidental founding. I was riding my bike one day, and this little African-American girl was like, "Mommy, there's a black lady," and she was screaming at the top of her lungs. And, biking is picking up in D.C., but, Black women, we're very underrepresented within the biking community. And so part of it is through Black Women Bike D.C. and through Inspire Greens and some of the things that we're developing as a company, it's really being visible and creating an army of advocates just by getting women on bikes. And we are really changing lives in our communities. We had a ride this past week, and there was a woman in her late 60s who hadn't been on a bike in 40 years. And she is, every picture of her, she has this smile. You would think that she was 5 years old. It just, something about being on a bike transforms you. And I am car free, so it's really living what I talk about every day. And so when I think about the District of Columbia as our population continues to increase, as our transportation continues to get worse, there's a certain freedom that comes with a bike. I think that we used to think a car meant freedom. But now in DC, okay, I can drive across the city, but then I'm gonna spend 20 minutes looking for parking. I'm probably gonna pay $30 for parking. I might get a parking ticket that's $125, versus, you have a bike and you need a bike lock, or now with the Great Capital Bike Share program funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation, you only need a key and a bike share membership. And so there's a certain freedom that comes with having a bike. I'm not confined to traffic. And so I really think that Black Women Bike DC, we really have an opportunity to change communities by getting women and by getting young girls especially on bikes.
Excellent. I've got to tell you that I actually live on Capitol Hill, right in downtown D.C., so I understand exactly what you're talking about. Now, I'm not car-free, though, but I utilize all modes, so thank you very much for what you're doing. And Phil, you're the last one, same thing. In terms of legacy, what do you think?
Sure, thank you, and I'm very, very thrilled to be here. Legacy, let me frame this for a quick minute. We have a very large transit expansion program in the Denver metro area called Fast Tracks. That program, I believe, is still the largest voter-approved transit expansion program in the country. With that program, we're building great bridges, laying great track and everything. But one of the things that came to us is human capital. What are we doing in the communities, which are mostly urban communities, where we are building this great infrastructure? I mean, are we identifying the people in those urban environments and looking to train them and get them jobs? And so this is what this Workforce Initiative Now program, or the WIN program, was born from. I mean, how do we identify, assess, train, and put people to work where we are building these infrastructure projects, which happen to be mostly in communities of color. We put together a partnership with the Community College of Denver, the Denver Urban League, and 34 training partners to help us identify young people in the community. We've brought them in, and a lot of times you do these training programs and you train folks and they have nowhere to go. What's different here is they have somewhere to go. We started with 30 individuals in this WIN program, the first pilot program. Now we're on the third group of 30. This is a wonderful thing. We're changing lives. This also includes veterans. And it's not just our project that we're focusing on. This is expanding throughout the metro area to other projects. We're encouraging general contractors, putting it in contract language to help us identify ways. We're tracking the individual participants in this program to see what happens in their community. We're tracking it by zip codes. What happens to the crime rate? What happens to the education level? What happens to the foreclosure rate? How is this community changed? And how is it impacted through the building of infrastructure? So we're very excited about it. When I was growing up on the south side of Chicago, there were people building stuff in my community that did not look like me. And when I went over to ask for a job, I was told either one or two things. One, you're too late to get a job, or two, you're not trained. We are changing that with this project called Fast Tracks, the Eagle P3, and we're very proud of that. We're changing lives in this region. That's the legacy that we want to leave.
Very good. Okay, I want to thank the panelists. I do have two more statements to make. Good luck to Georgia today in your initiative. And the themes that I have heard today are education, transformation, and really innovation, and that's what we're all about. So again, an honor just to be with all of the champions here, and thank you all very much for what you're doing. Thank you.
All right, well, to close this out today, we have John Carson, who's the Director of Public Engagement. Our office is the one that puts on the Champions of Change program, and he says you guys are tweeting up a storm out there, so keep it up. And with that, I'll call up John.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and a big congratulations to our Champions of Change. I have been watching on the live stream all morning, and it has just been a spectacular program. But I'm here to close today with an ask of each and every one of you, an ask of our champions, our ask of the fantastic audience that we have here today, and an ask of everyone who's following along online as well, which is to help us tell these stories. Help us tell the stories of why you are here today, why you're following online, and most importantly, help us tell the stories of our Champions of Change today. You know, we started this program, Champions of Change, because, well, we're here in Washington. We knew, the President knows, and this administration understands, that while we're here in Washington arguing over budgets, arguing over taxes, arguing over TIFIA grants, there are folks like our Champions of Change who are making a difference every single day in their community. And that's the story we wanted to tell, and that's the story we wanted to highlight. So tweet about it. We're using hashtag WHChamps. If If you don't know what a hashtag is, you should by now. You can tweet me and I'll tell you if you don't know. Blog about it, write about it, get a little excerpt in your company newsletter, grab 3 people in the grocery store or the bowling alley this weekend, and tell them about this. And I ask you to do it for 3 different reasons. First of all, I am sure that even our champions, everyone in the audience, everyone online, even our champions are leaving today with a new idea you hadn't heard about before you came. Whether it's a government program and how you could connect to it, a really innovative approach that one of our champions took, we need your help in sharing these best practices and getting these ideas out there. The second reason that we need your help is I think what we are also trying to highlight today, and I know the Department of Transportation and Secretary LaHood in particular were highlighting, was public-private partnerships, how the best of nonprofits and local leaders working together with the federal government can make change happen. And I think that is an important story to tell, particularly with real concrete local examples at a time that we are debating the big issues of budgets and taxes and how we're going to keep building this country. But the third reason, and I think the most important, that we need your help in telling this story is that at the heart of it, the story of our champions is of inspiration. You know, whatever we all think of those individual policy discussions on the tax and budget issues, whatever we think on those, I think one thing we can all agree is that we need more Americans, more people in this country believing they can make a difference. And when they hear the stories of what our champions have been able to do locally, they will say to themselves, I can be part of the change as well. When they hear what's happening from Boston to Los Angeles, and see the examples that our champions provide, they'll be inspired to make a difference in their own community as well. So thanks again to our champions. Thanks to everyone here and following along online. #WHChamps, and let's keep making a difference locally.